I've been trying businesses for so long, and finally I read somebody's blog post that was like, just do something that people actually want. And I just started this cleaning company called Tidy Casa. Didn't take too long to get to 1 million, and then pretty quick to about 2 million a year. And that's my superpower, right? Is marketing, specifically SEO, search engine optimization. Nobody has time to start an SEO company. But if you're valuing your time at that $1,000 an hour, you don't have the systems built that we do to actually kind of push that stuff in and make stuff go. The trick is...
What's going on, guys? Today we're joined by Ryan Knoll. Ryan is an absolute beast when it comes to digital marketing and automations, and he is the owner of Tidy Casa out in Arizona, and he's also a coach at Conquer. So I'm super excited to learn a bit more about you and what you do. But for starters, thank you for hopping on today.
Yeah, man. Hey, thanks for having me, Michael. I've been following your channel. Really, really great content you're putting out all the time. So I'm honored. I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, well, we're honored to have you. But for starters, let's dive into just learning a bit about Tidy Casa, kind of how you started the business and kind of where you guys are at now.
Yeah, sure. So for maybe 10 years before I started the company, I was doing digital marketing. So did it all over the place. I was consulting with Fortune 500 companies like Microsoft and Starwood Hotels, were companies I worked for, just kind of going in and being like, hey, this is where your website's broken. This is what you got to work on. That was my whole job. But, just like everybody else, really wanted to be an entrepreneur. It was always a dream of mine. I've been trying businesses for so long and kind of trying and failing and trying and failing. And finally, I read somebody's blog post that was like, just do something that people actually want. That's a real business. Don't try to reinvent Facebook. And I just started this cleaning company called Tidy Casa. Didn't take too long to get to 1 million, and then pretty quick to about 2 million a year. And that's about where we're sitting right now, as I'm kind of focusing on other stuff like the YouTube channel and things. But yeah, been quite a journey. And then eventually got connected with Conquer, so doing coaching with Conquer, which also been super rewarding. Just getting a chance to put these YouTube videos out, get in front of people, help do some coaching. Because I just remember coming up, there really wasn't Conquer, there wasn't groups like this and this type of information out there. So I just kind of had to learn things the hard way, just, running into walls and being like, oh, who put that there? And trying to refigure everything out, relearn it. So I love coming on podcasts like this and giving back.
100%. Yeah, and what was the year that you started Tidy Casa?
I started in 2015. I think we incorporated around March or April. I don't think I had my first customer until like July of that year. But once I kind of got that first customer and sort of started the process, it was pretty quick after that. And I think that the benefit that I had was when I started, I was working a full-time job. So I kind of instantly had to get to the stage 2 business route where other people are doing the work. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck. Like, hey, I'm going out doing the pressure washing. I'm going to the house, doing the work. Then I got to go get another job. And then I get the job. Then I go fulfill the job. You just kind of get stuck on the seesaw. Mm-hmm. And that was every business I had done. But with the cleaning thing, because I was working a full-time job and I never actually went and did cleaning, it kind of instantly put me in that stage 2 business where it's like, oh, other people are doing this. Like, okay, delegating, automating. I'm kind of forced to do all that because I'm working a full-time job. I can't be answering the phones all the time. So I'm getting somebody to answer the phones. I'm, getting somebody to handle the sales and outsourcing marketing to other vendors, even though I was a marketer, and just kind of skyrocketed our growth really, really quick. Plus, I didn't need to take any money out of the company because I had a full-time job. So I think I did that for like a year and a half until we just kind of got to this like inflection point where it's like, hey, you got to make a decision. You got to keep this job or you got to grow this business. And I remember at the time I was like, I think maybe it'd be better to do the job and I should just sell the business now and, pocket some cash and just kind of be comfy. And I decided to go with the business and haven't looked back. It was probably the best decision I ever made.
Yeah, definitely. Life would probably look very different at this point.
Oh yeah. I'm not punching the clock anywhere ever again. I'm too feral now, so you couldn't hire me.
But that's awesome. So in the beginning, like you said, you didn't have like the coaching and training that's out there today, and you still managed to scale very quickly. How long did it actually take you initially to scale to 7 figures?
I think 7 figures. Yeah, because I grew to about 500,000 really, really quick. And that's where that inflection point was, where I needed to kind of put some more time into the business. There was things I didn't know about profit margins and cost of goods sold that I just didn't fully understand because I didn't have that mentor, right? So our profitability wasn't what it could be. I think I was at like 10%. I was like, oh, this is really good. And anybody that's making more than 10% has to be crazy. They got to be doing something wrong. But I eventually kind of learned what I had to learn, got the profit in line. And I had to leave my job to do that because it was not, I couldn't focus on just figuring that stuff out and diving deep. As soon as I got out of that business where I was employed and started focusing on that stuff, I'd say maybe it took me another year. As soon as I left my job to go from about 500 to 600,000 to a million. And then I got stuck at a million for way too long, like 3 or 4 years, until I finally started kind of you know, interfacing with Conquer a little bit, going through their kind of coaching program. And my coach in Conquer, Kedma, told me like, oh, it's systems. Like the systems that got you to a million are not what's going to get you to two. And there's this tendency to think, hey, I'm going to go in there and we're doing all this stuff, so I just got to do 10 times more of that, and that's how I'll make 10 million. But the thing that happens is that the systems that got you here, they don't scale. And as soon as you start thinking in that direction and changing how you're doing stuff, so all Kedma did was tell me you got to reinvent your systems. And I started kind of looking at everything a little bit deeper, like, oh, okay, we're not really hanging on to cleaners like we used to. And I'm having a hard time hiring new people. So as soon as I hire somebody, then we start growing. And then, oh, this is the wrong person I hired. So now we're starting to shrink again. I just started paying attention to that. I'm like, okay, I got to figure out my hiring. I got to figure out my employee retention. And then that'll kind of solve the customer retention issues that I was having right around a million. And as soon as I kind of started putting some new things in place to sort of automate hiring processes and recruit people faster, I went from being able to hire one person every 2 to 3 months to 2 people a week. If I really wanted to, if I wanted to hit on the gas, I could get 2 people a week, no problem. And then the business grew like $500,000 that year just because somebody told me, hey, you gotta reinvent your systems, and what got you here is not going to get you over here. So that was a pretty magical kind of weird piece. So shout out to Kedma O for some really, really great advice, and I continue to meet with her at least once a month and just kind of drill down on, hey, I'm having this thing, but that benefits of coaching, that I really like. So I tend to be very long-winded. Answer your question, took me about, I say, 2 to 3 years to really get to that $1 million spot, just because I got hung up on should I quit my job or not, and then I got hung up on a million. And as soon as I kind of figured out some of those roadblocks and got some more time to focus, everything started happening for me. So
Awesome. And so something interesting you're saying then, and based on your background, this is what I would have imagined. Getting the customers was never the issues. It was getting the employees in place to be able to
yeah,
manage this type of workflow.
yeah, and I'm from a marketing background, so I've always had a really easy time getting customers. Like if you're in my area and you Google house cleaning, I show up number one because that was what I did for 10 years, and you can't pay somebody to do a better job than you as a business owner is going to do. Like if you've got the superpower of selling, you're never going to be able to pay somebody to sell more in your business than you do because you're making 100% of that profit. You've got all the motivation in the world. You're trying to feed your family. So that's my superpower, right? Is marketing, specifically SEO, search engine optimization. And I ended up learning is that the thing that I need to do is make sure I'm hiring really, really great people. So that's, if you're looking at culture index or entrepreneur operating system, they all kind of break down to the right people in the right seats. So I had to kind of learn how to identify those people. And specifically the thing I had to learn how to do was identify the okay employees. I think it's really easy to keep good ones, to fire bad ones, but the okay-ish ones is where I was getting stuck. And almost any time I got stuck, I would start, I had my kind of checklist. Okay, I'm going to look at the marketing. I'm going to look at the sales. Okay, marketing's going good. Sales is going good. Customers are generally reporting being happy, but we're not growing. And it was always because I had an okay person out there doing work, and they were getting all the new customers because the people that were really good are busy with their kind of regulars. And then everybody that was new coming into the business as customers were going to the okay employees. They're having an okay experience and being like, I'm just not going to work with that company again. But I'm not so upset that I'm going to call and tell them. I'm not going to pay attention to that. So we had to learn how do I identify those okay-ish people and get rid of them fast. it's like the hardest thing in the world for me to do because I tend to be a very nice guy. I tend to be very helpful. And I don't like being the bad guy. I don't like having to fire people. But stuff you got to learn as an entrepreneur. I think the thing I fall back on a lot with that is there was one moment in my life. Well, actually, I've been fired twice. I had just about every job because I'm basically unemployable. So I would have a job for like 6 months to a year, get fired, and then find a new job. Actually, I would quit because I'm, whatever. But was fired from being a busboy. I worked at this pizza restaurant called Spinato's, which is a kind of a local pizza chain here in Phoenix, Arizona. And worked there for about 2 weeks. They're like, you're too slow at bussing tables. You're gone. It's like, okay, cool. It was like 15, 16 at the time. It's fine. I'm not bitter. I still like their pizza. And then the second time I was working for this agency, and I thought I was doing a good job for them. Like when I started there, I was working on there was like this local alt weekly newspaper business. They had like 10 or 13 of these alt weekly newspapers, like 10 or 13, because they were kind of buying and selling them constantly. And I was working on their websites, trying to optimize those. That turned into, hey, we want to start an agency. We started with 0 customers, then had about 1,000 by the time I quit the first time. And then I got rehired later because I didn't like the job I went to. And then they ended up firing me after that. But I remember they brought me in, told me I was gone. And at the time I was like terrified of it. But it took me maybe a week to find a new job. The new job that I found was probably the best job I had ever had. It was the last job I ever had, but it was also the best, which is when I had that opportunity to start working with really, really big clients instead of the small businesses. So I was working with, like I said, Starwood Hotels. We did a project for Coca-Cola. We were working on the Xbox website, which is kind of cool. As being a gamer, I was like, oh, this is awesome. But the moral of that story is, I think as business owners, if we don't want to fire people, it feels bad, but it's almost always the right decision, So kind of learning how to listen to my gut and kind of what are the canaries in the coal mine here for I should fire this person, especially when they're okay. When they're bad, it's obvious. When they're good, it's obvious. We're keeping them. But when they're okay, that's the hardest. Like it's hard to fire the B, the C plus, B minus people.
Yeah, I definitely agree. At this point, it's the way I look at it. If it's not a hell yeah, it's a hell no. So if it's not
Yep.
like an absolute A player, someone you're super happy with,
Yep.
you're probably eventually, if you think long term, not going to work with them. So someone told me this. I forget exactly how it goes, but you'll never look back at someone you fired and say, I wish I fired them later. You're never going to look
Yeah.
back and regret firing them too soon. So you might as well just do it.
1,000% true. Yeah. The regret is always I should have fired them earlier.
Yeah,
I shouldn't have
exactly.
waited because it only gets worse. And kind of the signal that I learned for like when I'm listening to my gut before this is helps a lot more with the bad people, not as much with the okay-ish ones, was if you ever have the thought I should fire this employee or I should fire this contractor, whoever it might be, it's almost always true. I don't think there's ever been a time that I thought I need to fire this employee who's a good employee. It just doesn't happen. Most of the time you're like, oh, they did that? That's really cool. I'm glad they did that. Or they went and, they started bringing dog treats to the customers' dogs. Like, that's awesome. That's the good employees. The bad ones are like, what did they say to that customer? God, I got to get rid of them. And then you're like, no, they made a mistake. They're having a bad day. I'm just going to excuse it. But then wait a couple of days, you're going to have that thought again. They did what? They're showing up late again? They got more car troubles?
Yeah. If it happens once, probably will happen again.
Yeah, 1,000%, and probably worse. Like they degrade. There's
Yeah. Yeah. The thing is, when as a business owner, when you allow something like that to happen, now that is the, minimal viable acceptable behavior. Like whatever it is they did, if they say something poorly to a customer and you accept it, now that they know you're willing to accept that, so they might not only do it themselves, but they'll say it in front of another employee and bring other people down with them too.
Yeah, 100%. And not only they're going to bring other employees down, customers down, they're going to hurt your ability to grow. But what you'll find too is if you have too much of that, I mean, even just one really toxic person can get the good employees to leave. Employees don't leave bad jobs. They leave bad bosses. They leave bad environments. And that could be just hey, I don't want to be on the truck with this guy anymore because he smells or he's rude or he's short with me. Um, so you've really kind of got to hire for those good personalities and the top performers, because people that are performing at a high level, they feel rewarded performing with other people that are at a high level or people that can bring them up. But if you're the top dog in the food chain, it's that old saying, if you're the smartest person in the room, find another room. Everybody feels that way. Whether you're pressure washing or cleaning toilets, if you're the best janitorial engineer out there and you're just working with somebody who's like showing up late and taking too many cigarette breaks, kind of makes you feel like crap.
Yeah. 100%. That's awesome. I definitely want to switch gears a little bit and dive into SEO, which I know is a big area of expertise for you. And I'm sure
Yep.
that's probably what helped with your early success in the business. So, for someone who is just now getting into SEO, they know it's important, but they're not really sure how to approach it. What is your advice for them?
Yeah. Okay. So this is a whole big rabbit hole to jump down. And I could probably talk for 10 hours on this. I'm going to try to give as much little nuggets as I can. So for people watching on YouTube, grab a pen and a piece of paper. The first thing that I like to say is hire a professional. There was a time in my life where I was like, hey, this is easy. I know how to do this. I'm just going to have people do it. I'm just going to teach everybody how to do it. But there's a certain level of poison that's out there where if you get too many of the tools too early before you understand how they work, that you can mess up your website. And it's gotten harder and harder over the last couple of years. So even things that kind of seem simple, you go in there and you just didn't quite get something right. And a lot of times it's organization type stuff where like I put my address like this over here and like this over here. It was a suite 102 here and it's apartment 102 here, or unit 102 here, and Google doesn't quite line them up, and then this thing tries to update this thing, and then this thing's just up Google Maps pending address, and now you're stuck in pending and you can't figure out how to do it, and then you just got to go hire a professional to do it. So my advice typically is to find somebody who's really good at this stuff to help you, because it's harder than it seems. And a lot of times when I give people a little bit of advice, like, hey, this is something you should be doing, they start thinking this is the only thing you need to be doing. And what SEO has really become over the years is a very holistic approach. It's not just about publishing a bunch of content. It's not just about having a bunch of backlinks. It's a combination of all these things. And all of these things have so much nuance. Like, hey, if you're publishing content, needs to be original, it needs to be valuable. If it's not valuable, it doesn't have 2,000 words of original written researched content that's unique to the universe, then Google's looking at it in a different light than somebody who just put a ChatGPT article up. And this is a recent change. The other thing is a lot of recent changes, a lot of changes the last couple of years. Google was pretty stable the last 4 or 5 years, and has just kind of gone nuts with AI trying to figure out how to redo the article, or the algorithms. So there's a bit of danger in all this. So just try to be careful when you're making changes. That said, the thing that I point most people to that I'm coaching, or kind of starting a business for the first time, or thinking about what should I do to optimize my business, my presence, start getting a couple more leads through online sources without having to pay for every single lead. The low-hanging fruit is really Google Maps for me, or Google Business Profiles. And when I say that, any Google search is going to have some anatomy to it. So you'll look for pressure washing services, and you'll see Google local service ads at the top. Underneath that, you'll probably see 1 or 2 Google paid ads. Underneath that, you'll probably have a handful of organic results. So those organic results are going to sometimes pop up above maps, sometimes below. Google's kind of been trying to figure that out, so it seems to change a lot. And those will usually be local businesses, or like Yelp. Angie's List will sometimes pop up on there. They've been kind of bouncing up and down depending on the keyword and the location and all that. And then you'll have this Google Maps result. I really like the Google Maps results. That's a really big, prominent place on Google. You can see reviews and phone numbers and all that. And Google's been pushing that down more, but I still see a ton of traction from people that can rank there. And the reason I like to start ranking there instead of trying to rank in that organic spot that pops up a little bit before, just to kind of put it in numbers, to really start ranking in that organic spot based on the economics of what I know you have to do to get there, you really need to be paying about 2 to 3 thousand a month for about a year to 2 years to start ranking there. That's some publishing content or optimizing content that's on the website already, making it really, really well done, making sure the website loads really fast, and building a lot of backlinks. And when I say building backlinks, people are like, oh, I'm going to go buy some blog posts or do guest posts somewhere. And they start thinking of how do I get, 1 or 2 backlinks, but really it's thousands. So my website really didn't start ranking until I got to like 1,200, 1,500 websites that were linking back to me with a good diversity of really high quality and low quality websites, kind of all over the place. You try to lean towards high quality as much as you can. But it takes a lot of effort. And then that Google Maps chunk, we can really get there in 3 to 6 months with a lot less effort. I would usually put that value of ranking in there about $600 to $700 a month over 3 to 6 months, as opposed to 2 to 3 thousand over 2 years. So the ROI is way higher there. And even ranking in the organic, you still get a lot of calls from that Google Maps location.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you're saying this because I think about myself when I'm a consumer, when I'm going to Google searching for something, I kind of disregard everything except for Google Maps. So I
Yeah,
imagine not only is it lower hanging fruit, but probably that's where a majority of your customers are going to anyway, straight to Google Maps. So
yeah,
it makes sense that that's probably where you should, especially in the beginning stages, probably focus your energy.
yeah, yeah. And yeah, easier to rank for, higher ROI. And I do the same thing. Like who's near me and what do their reviews look like? I'm gonna go look at the number one top rated review that's recommended, and I'm gonna look at a couple of their 1 stars and just see what, are they responding to the 1 star? Like, is this a good company? And I can figure that out pretty quick on Google Maps, and I think Google knows that. So it's why they're pushing Google Maps down, because when Google Local Services first came out, it was Google Local Services, an ad, a couple of Google organic ads or AdWords ads, and then the map. And now it's like, oh, we're going to put some search results in there, make this a little less useful, kind of bury these Google Maps because people love those Google Maps. Like I will just go straight to there to find most local services, even if I'm looking for a plumber. Like it doesn't matter if they're close to me, they're coming to me. I still want to kind of look at their reviews and just, oh, are they close? Are they good? Um, so yeah, it's I've seen a lot of traction there, and you can do it with a lot less effort. So the couple things you need to do to actually start ranking there. So this is where the rubber hits the road, and my warning again of make sure you have a professional, because the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to talk here for 20 minutes on how to do this stuff. If you do it wrong, you could do more damage than good in some cases. And then the algorithm's going to change in 3 months. So the stuff I'm saying now may work now, and then it won't work in 6 months. That's the other part of having a professional, is they can kind of keep up with the trends, because Google really doesn't want you to be able to manipulate this stuff. They want you to pay for all the ads, and they're charging an arm and a leg right now. I think my leads went from like $20 a lead to like 50, 60, and everybody across the board that I talked to is having the same experience. Cost per click is way up. So the couple things that you need is you need to have we're just going to talk about Google Business Profile first. So your Google Business Profile is the piece that ranks on Google Maps. So if you want to get on Google Maps, you got to go create yourself a Google Business Profile. We need that Google Business Profile to have a consistent name. This is more complicated than it sounds. I was talking to one of the people I was coaching, and we were kind of going through this process, and I was walking him through it, and we started doing some research, and in some cases they were HVAC, and in other cases they were heating and air. And so their name, and I'm not going to give their full brand name so they have some privacy, but they hadn't really made an internal decision between, are we heating and air or are we HVAC? And on Facebook they were HVAC, and on Google Maps they were heating and air, and on Yelp they were something else. So what Google really wants is that to be consistent. And it sounds easy. A lot of times the things that I see is that HVAC versus heating and air, or do we include the LLC? Do we not include the LLC? you want to have a consistent name. So get that narrowed down first. What's your name? We're going to be consistent with it. The next thing they want is a consistent address. So, like I was saying before, this could come down to do we say suite number, unit number, or just have a hashtag? I typically suggest if you have, like 123 Street, Suite 102, do hashtag 102. Most other directories outside of Google will accept anything, apartment, suite, unit, but a lot of other directories will just limit it to like a suite or a unit, but they almost all accept a hashtag, like hashtag 123 for the, unit number, door number, whatever. So get an address and keep it consistent. When I say keep it consistent, it sounds silly. Like, why am I going to change my mailing address? But that does happen. Am I spelling out the word street, or am I just putting ST, right? Get it consistent. And then a phone number. You want to have a phone number. You want to have a local phone number. So Google will typically only accept local phone numbers. They don't want a 1-800 number on there. The mistake I see a lot of people making next is that name, address, phone number you have on Google Business. We want to have that on your website as well. And that seems simple, but the thing that happens is, hey, we're heating and air over here and we're HVAC over here, or hashtag here and suite number here. The phone number is a big one for people. I think a lot of people, especially people that kind of have that mind for tracking the KPIs and optimizing and all that stuff, it's really, really great. We want to know your numbers and know where we're getting calls from, but we don't want to use a unique tracking number for Google Business Profiles. That's different from what's on the website. And now on the website, we can do dynamic switching with like call rail or call tracking metrics. That's fine, but we don't want to have a phone number on Google Maps that's only on Google Maps. If we wanted to hack that a little bit, we could have the tracking number be the main number and then use a secondary number in Google Maps. That's the kind of main real number for the business. But my preference is I don't get enough value out of tracking that on Google Maps. Google Maps has its own metrics where it can say how many people called, and we can sort of guesstimate that. Because we just ask customers when they call us, where'd you find us? So we can narrow down on that close enough that it's valuable information, but not hurt our Google rankings with it. So we got your name, address, phone number on Google Maps. Now it's on your website as well, and they're matched up. They're aligning. There's we got our yin and yang. There's symbiosis in the universe. And once we can kind of get there, it's on your website. It's on your Google Business Profile. The rest of the Google Business Profile is filled out. We've got a business description that makes sense. It's not just a list of keywords. Like I've seen some before, they're like, we do roof washing, solar panel washing, and pressure washing. That's not enough. They give you, I think, about 500 words in that business description. Take advantage of that. Write some actual copy, something that customers are going to read and interact with and like, that has the keywords in it for what your business does. Like if you do roof washing, you want to talk about that. We've only got so much space. So make sure you get it all in there. Make sure that's optimized. Make sure your business categories make sense. This is another thing that I've run into in the past, especially with pressure washers specifically. And I know a lot of your audience is pressure washing companies, which is why I keep coming back to it. But there's no category in Google for roof washing, for example. I don't think there's even one for solar panel washing, which it doesn't make sense. Like you'd think they would have that. I think even pressure washing is kind of weird. Like I think it's nested under window cleaning a lot of times, but you want to find that category that most closely matches. And the mistake that people make is, hey, we do roof washing. I want a roof washing category in my Google business. So I'm going to go for a roofing contractor. And this is one that I've seen. But a roofing contractor, what Google's expecting is you go and repair roofs or install new roofs. So it's not really what you do. So that's kind of a negative signal to Google if they're sending people that are searching for roofers to you, and you're doing pressure washing and they're just going back to Google Maps after they call you and say, no, I don't do shingles. I don't replace your shingles. It's a negative signal that Google starts pushing you down. So we don't want to stuff as many categories in there as we can. We want to just kind of get the good key ones that are as close to what we actually do as possible without trying to elaborate or go too far. So like in my industry, cleaning, there's a category for residential kind of home cleaning. I think it's just house cleaners. And then there's another one for janitorial. Janitorial is more, I'm cleaning schools and offices. So even with that, we want to kind of narrow it down. Like, do we actually clean schools and offices? We don't want to try to get as much as possible. We want to get just exactly what we do. That's right. Once we have that all established, the Google business profile, we got a name that makes sense and it's consistent on our website and in Google business. We've got our address, we got our phone number. Those make sense. We want to use those. They're not called tracking numbers. They're the actual number that appears on the business profile and on the website. Next thing we want to do is one of the key signals for Google. Now, this is according to some recent studies and just surveys of other SEOs, about 25 to 30% of your ranking factor is how often your business name, address, and phone number, that kind of consistent thing I keep coming back to. In the SEO world, they call it your NAP information, name, address, phone number, is appearing all over the internet. The more it's appearing on the internet, the more Google trusts that it's authentic and real. So the higher they're going to rank it because the trust factor is higher. So what we want to do is take that information and spread it out as many places as we can so that Google sees that it's consistent and knows, hey, I can trust this company because I've seen this name, address, and phone number appear all over the place. So I'm going to start ranking it higher. The easiest tools to do this with, and if you hire a company to do local SEO, and I do local SEO for Click Call Sell, I'm helping them kind of, build that product and managing that for them. We do this over there. Not all SEO companies I've seen do it. So it is just good to know about because we've come in with people being like, hey, I've been hiring this SEO company, working with it for 2 years. We're not really getting anything. And I start, kind of reverse engineering it. I'm like, yeah, they really weren't doing much for you. But we work with what are called citation aggregators. So this isn't the full thing you need to do to rank, but it is a really, really big chunk, about 30%. And what a citation aggregator will do. So we all know about, or a lot of people know about Data Axle. Like I'm sure you've used it before, Michael, right? Data Axle for like hunting down business information for B2B sales type stuff. So Data Axle's free through the library. Anybody can get access to it. But the way they make most of their money is if I wanted to start a new Yelp, I would go to Data Axle and say, hey, I want to buy all the business information for everybody in the United States so I can start my own directory, the Ryan Knoll directory.com. I should probably buy that domain name before I start pitching it out. It's going to be a porn site by the time we're done with this. Please don't make that a porn site. But what they'll do is they'll set a price to that. Okay, every quarter we'll give you our updated information. You pay us $150,000 a year or whatever, and we'll give you access to that. So then Data Axle resells that information. It goes on these directory sites. Those directory sites publish that information. Google sees that published website and says, oh, there's another name, address, phone number that matches. We're going to rank this website a little bit higher. And so there's a couple different websites like this. Data Axle is one of them. There's another one called Info Group. There's a handful of other. Foursquare does this now too. That used to be a check-in app, and now they've turned into a data aggregator. So there's about 5 or 6 of them now that exist. So we find a tool that does this data aggregation, and you can't just like email Data Axle and say, hey, include my stuff. You have to be a trusted vendor and go through a whole process to be able to sell or give them information that they trust. So there's a couple companies that do this. One of them is called Moz. So Moz.com, or if you just Google Moz Local, M-O-Z Local, that'll pop up. That's a good data aggregator. There's another one called Yext. If you're using SEMrush, they've got a citation aggregation service that is actually a white labeled version of Yext that you can do for about $30 a month. Or if you're in Go High Level, under the reseller page, you can get a white labeled version of Yext where it's normally about $50 a month. You can get it for about 30. Yext is a pretty powerful one. And there's another one called Bright Local. That's also very good. This one's cheaper than the other two, but a lot harder to use. So I typically say just spend the extra money on the other guys, or there's another one called White Spark. Um, Probably more out there. I always like to give a couple options so people don't come blame me when one of them doesn't work. So do your homework on it. Find one that you can actually work with. So if you go to Moz Local, it'll have you put in your information. It'll kind of do a little search, tell you like, hey, your citations are off by this much, and then it'll try to sell you a package. And those packages is what I like. So kind of it'll give you like three options, and people like to go with the cheapest one, but go for the most expensive one. And then there's an extra add-on service for more data aggregation, where instead of submitting you to like 3 data aggregators, it'll submit you to 5. It's like extra $40 a year. Just do it. And I think this whole price for Moz Local is about $330 a year. I think if you go with Yext for $30 a month, $360 a year. They're all about that same price. Bright Local is going to be a little bit cheaper, so is White Spark, but harder to use, more room for error. And then it'll start building these citations for you. And it gives you some prompts and kind of walks you through. You got to do some homework and connect your Google business profile and things. But then within about 3 to 4 months, it's given this data out to the data aggregators. Those data aggregators have published it. Google scraped the data, and now you're starting to rank higher. And it's not going to be the thing that you need. Like if you're in a small market where maybe there's, 3 or 4 competitors, this might be the only thing you need to do. If you're in, New Jersey, New York City, where you actually got like some competition, you're out in LA or Denver, Colorado, you're going to have to probably do a lot more work. But this, for a lot of people that I've been coaching, this is enough to go from, I'm not getting any calls from Google to, hey, I'm actually getting a call or two. And, you close one of these jobs and it's paid for the entire year because it's so affordable. So that's usually where I want people to start when we're starting with SEO is make sure all your stuff's consistent and on point and do the homework to say, hey, are we HVAC or are we heating and air? And are we going to use the LLC or not? Are we going to do comma LLC or are we just going to do business name LLC? All these little details make a difference, and that's why SEO is kind of unique to the other marketing forms because like everything has to be just very organized and neat and straight. Like kind of have to have OCD with your data compliance, and then make sure it's on the Google Business Profile, it's on your website, and then let's submit it through one of these data aggregators: Moz Local, Yext, Bright Local, or White Spark to get those kind of spread out. Then within 3 to 4 months, we're not going from 0 to number 1, but we're probably going from like 0 to maybe popping up like 4 or 5. And we're almost getting onto the map pack. But for certain spots, if we're close enough, we'll start popping up. And then there's other things that we can kind of do after that. But, we start getting into, a lot of extra homework. Like some of the things are responding to reviews with keywords in there. That helps. It used to help more. Doesn't help as much now, but it's still good and helpful. A lot of business owners tend to only respond to 1 stars. We want them to be responding to all the 5 stars too. Hey, thanks so much for leaving the review. Is not enough. You wanted to say, hey, really glad you enjoyed your pressure washing service. We're excited to see you next year. Anything else we could do for you, let us know. Keyword being, roof washing service, making it seem natural. Frequent Google Business Profile posts is another thing that people mess up on. Like, oh, I have to do Google Business Profile post. Okay, I wrote something, posted it. I'm doing it once a week. Not quite enough. What I really like to do, like the stuff that we do with Click, Call, Sell, is we're going to identify kind of what the target keywords are, what the services are. We're going to post about a different one every week. And we're going to have it be a good chunk of text. There's going to be an original picture there. There's going to be a link to that service page. And we're going to rotate those out so they stay fresh, and do it every week. So start doing that stuff. And then there's, of course, the list of like all the signals, about 200 different things. But that's most of the core right there. And that'll get most people about 50% of the way there if you're in a really competitive market. But you're going to feel the effects of that really, really quick. Within 3 to 4 weeks, you're going to start saying, hey, the phone's ringing a lot more. I'm not really sure where they're coming from. Probably Google Maps if you're doing all these things. And there's very few business owners I talk to who just kind of do this on their own. Even not a lot of SEOs, because the other thing that I run into a lot is people hire an SEO, not realizing there's a difference between this Google local SEO, where I can just optimize for Google Maps. It's more affordable. It's going to have a higher ROI for me, and I can kind of start here. And this will actually give me a lot of juice to start going after the organic SEO. But a lot of SEO people are just going after the organic, or they're not sophisticated enough to kind of know the real nitty gritty details of what they have to do. There's this experiment that happened, I think in Stanford, where they had pigeons, right? And the pigeons would just, one group of pigeons would get a treat on like a regular timer. One group of pigeons would just randomly get a treat, and the other group would get a treat every time they push this button. But they all had buttons there. And with the randomly, controlled group, these pigeons started doing really weird stuff because they were assuming causation when there was just a correlation. So they would, like, one pigeon was like spinning around 3 times and then doing a head nod and then hitting the button, and then he was assuming that was what was getting him the treat. The other pigeons that had it, like when they hit the button, they were just hitting the button, getting a treat, hitting the button, getting a treat. A lot of SEOs are like that pigeon spinning around, waving its head around, thinking that they're getting a treat. It's hard to differentiate between the causation and correlation when you're doing SEO. So a lot of SEO people will maybe take credit, whether it's due or not, or whether they know they're doing it or not, for like, hey, we went on, we optimized your title tags, now you're showing up really, really well. And maybe that worked in a really small market where there wasn't any competition. And now that you're in a really competitive market, in a place that has a lot of competition, it's not quite enough. So they think they're doing a good job for you. They're not being inauthentic in that, but they just don't have that level of experience to know, like, oh, I really need to start building some more advanced backlinks, and I'd be getting them from a more trusted source, or we need to be kind of engaging with, reporter tools to help becoming sources for news articles. Like, that's how we get into the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times and actually start building some really powerful backlinks, as opposed to, hey, I found a guy on, Fiverr who's got a public blog network that we can post on. So I'm going down a rabbit hole again. But all that to say, I would suggest hiring an SEO. So I can get into that. Sorry, I get like super excited about this stuff and I just start throwing things out. Michael, how are we feeling? Have you glazed over yet?
This is all great. I didn't want to interrupt you because you're kind of on the roll, but everything was super valuable that you're sharing with me. Some key takeaways if you're going to try this on your own, some things that are, manageable for a beginner, I guess you could say. Number one is congruency. Anyone can do this. Just whatever's on your website is on your social media, is on your Google. Just be congruent everywhere.
Yep.
Number two is the services you're going to list. Don't list stuff you're not literally offering, or you're going to be getting leads that are not looking
Yeah.
for your services, which on one end you might think all that's doing is wasting your time speaking to the wrong people, but in reality Google is now sending you people that you might not want being sent to you. So Google thinks you're trying to receive a different type of lead than what you're actually trying to receive, right?
Right. And then it uses that as a signal. Like, they're sending you people that you don't want. Those people are going back to Google, and Google's like, hey, I sent somebody over here, and then they came right back to me. So probably should show this website a little bit less. And that's the thing with Google, is there's all these little tiny signals that they look at. There's thousands of them. And just that little thing of like, hey, they said they were a roofing contractor, but I sent this guy over here that was looking for roofing, and he came right back. So I probably shouldn't show that website anymore, because it's not good for that Google user, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, so is the congruency, making sure you're listing the right services you're actually offering. There's the data aggregation. So you mentioned a few different platforms. I'm curious, what if you did multiple? Like, would that make any difference as opposed to just choosing one of them?
No, yeah, and see, this is why it pays to have a professional, right? So you want to pick the one that's going to be best for you, that's going to make the most sense, but most of them are using the same sources.
Mm,
So they can kind of end up competing against each other. So if Moz Local is going to send it to Data Axle, and then Yext is going to send it to Data Axle again, you're just kind of paying for both. And if there's a discrepancy between the two, because I've seen that happen before, we're like, oh, I just went and got all of them. But this one's got a comma here and this one's got an LLC. Once again, the data incongruency causes
yeah.
more problems. And then, when an SEO comes in, we might have to go in and do some cleanup, because it got a little messy. But Typically, there's not a downside to doing it aside from you're wasting money. It's not helping.
Okay, so basically what you're saying, it might not hurt, but it might be redundant and not the best usage of your money.
Yeah, most of the time. And so the pecking order that I kind of have is bright local, more affordable, harder to use. Moz local is kind of middle range, pretty easy to use, but maybe doesn't have quite as many citations as Yext. Yext is going to be a little bit more expensive. They're going to have a few more citations, um, maybe a little bit harder to use, but they also have better reporting built in. So it just kind of depends on what you really need out of it. My go-to has been Moz. I feel like that's the simplest one. It builds a good number of citations that are helpful, has pretty good reporting, and just for the easy use and the price, you can pay per month. I think it's like $19 per month for their top package with the add-ons, which is what I would suggest getting, versus or I think like 320 bucks a year, maybe not even. I feel like it was cheaper last time I looked. But you'd pay an SEO person about 600 bucks a month to do something similar. They're going to, hopefully that SEO is going to be doing more. Most SEOs I talk to are not doing more than that. They're doing maybe about that, maybe some on-site SEO on top of it. But usually a lot of them that are in that range of 600 to 700 bucks a month are just doing on-site SEO and then just kind of paying you to like manage your hosting. And it's not because they're being mean. It's they think they're helping, I think, but they just don't have that level of experience like I do, where I've managed thousands of clients and got to see the big picture just because I was working with so many. You
Right.
know.
Makes sense. Okay. So
Yeah.
probably don't go with multiple options, but go with whichever one makes the most sense for you. And then
Yeah.
aside from that, the things that people already know, I mean, getting reviews, replying to them, not just the
Mhm.
positive reviews, but also the negative reviews, and realizing people are going to read those reviews too. Like,
Yeah.
don't reply like an asshole. Have a nice reply and also use the
Right.
keywords within those responses.
And it can, having a negative review can become a positive because people are going to look at that negative review and they're going to, a lot of the times when you're reading these negative reviews, you can kind of read between the lines and say, okay, this individual is having a bad day. It doesn't sound like this company did really anything wrong. And then if you see the response from the owner, that's like, hey, I'm really sorry. If that was me, I'd be upset too. We tried to call you to make it up to you. We weren't able to get a hold of you. Here's my email. Here's my phone number. Reach out to me. We want to make it right. It shows, hey, this is a good business. If something goes wrong, they're going to take care of me. And this person's just being a jerk, just wants to have a 1-star review on there and doesn't actually want to fix the problem. Um, that can become a positive.
Yeah, and you even mentioned this earlier is when you check reviews, you go straight for the one-star reviews. So for a lot of people, they're probably reading how you respond to reviews and dictating whether they work with you or not based on your response.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, really great way to get a competitive advantage too. If you're looking for, what can my business do better than other people, just go look at their 1-star reviews and you'll see like, oh, this company never shows up on time. So if I just show up on time, it's going to make people happy, right?
That's a good point. And so the last thing you mentioned was in posting on your Google My Business, using keywords, changing it up, not just doing the same exact post over and over again,
Hmm.
same service, but switching it up. So personally, and I'd love your guidance here, we
Sure.
post once per day, 5 times per week, different services each time. Is that too much to be posting?
I don't think you can post too much. I'm usually sticking to about once a week. I feel like that's, because really these things are for Google. I don't know why Google pushes them on people so much, but they want to see that you're engaged with the platform and they want to see that you're utilizing it. So once a week I feel like is kind of healthy and nice. Maybe twice a week, there can be some benefits there. And you want to be posting about things that are happening in the company, news, coupons you have going on right now, promotions. But it's also okay to just talk about services. And even if you said, hey, we do house painting, oh, we do interior house painting, oh, we do exterior house painting, and then next week talking about, whatever the opposite of, oh, we did exterior last week, we're doing interior this week. Um, it's okay to have some kind of going back and forth there, but it does help move the needle and help push you up a little bit, at least temporarily. But that's why you do it every week or so. Um, I wouldn't really push for any more than twice a week at the most. I think there's a diminishing return. About once a week's my comfort zone.
Makes sense, and definitely can also just save us a little bit of bandwidth. So we'll
Yeah,
definitely stop posting every day.
yeah. And there's some cool tools too where you can just kind of go in and then bang out like a bunch of them and schedule these out too. So a really great tool is called Buffer, buffer.com. I think it'll let you connect 3 channels for free. So that could be 3 different Google business profiles, and you just schedule them out. It's even got an AI tool in there that'll help you write it. I don't know if you can get access to the AI tool in the free version, but even the paid version is only like $50 a month. So you just go in there once a month, put them all in there, and then check back in a month.
Yeah, I mean, most people watching this probably value their time at least $50 an hour. So if they're saving more than an hour per month doing that, then something like that is a no-brainer.
Yeah, I would hope. Yeah.
Cool. So as a beginner, I know we're very short on time. So what you just explained gets us, you'd say probably roughly 50% of the results of what we could possibly get with SEO. That remaining 50%, is that possible? And of course it's possible, but is that realistic for a beginner that's just trying to manage it themselves? Or at that point, do they really need that expert to be working with them?
It's a hard call to make, because this type of stuff that we have to do kind of above and beyond this is, publishing content's important. But just especially in the last couple of months, the publishing content piece has switched between, let's just put a bunch of content on the website and eventually something will get traction and that'll be worth having on there. Now Google's kind of looking at all the content on a website and saying 90% of this content's junk. We're not even going to crawl it. And in fact, we're going to devalue the whole website, because even though there's this one good article, the rest of it's kind of crap. So there's these little nuances where, like, that thing that I just said, the opposite strategy worked last year. This year, we're not going to have 1,000 blog posts. We're going to have 5 that are just really, really good and valuable. We're going to go 2,000 words on interior house painting versus having 15 blogs about the different interior house painting near me, interior house painting, Fort Collins, whatever. Because then those pages start competing against each other. So all that to say, that's the type of stuff that you got to do. You got to start looking at the content of the website, making sure the content's valuable, and as valuable as you can get it. You want to reduce the bounce rate. So that could be, writing a really good 2,000 word page on this service you offer, frequently asked questions, cost, how to get a quote, all that stuff. Maybe put a YouTube video of you talking about the service on the website. Helps with the stickiness, helps with the close rates and just the people sticking on the page. So I'd rather have, go deep on stuff like that. That's kind of the next sort of tier. And then we start optimizing things like the speed of the website. Whenever I have somebody who's like, hey, I'm just really not ranking, almost universally I'll look at their website and it'll take like 10 seconds to load. And just like we were talking about before, people are going from Google onto that website. It's taking 10 seconds to load. People are super lazy and bored and they want to get off there. They're TikTok generation. So if it doesn't load within 2 seconds, they're back onto Google. And Google's like, hey, I sent a bunch of people over here and they're coming right back. So I should probably send a different website. Amazon learned this really, really early. They figured every second that they could lower off the load time of their website on average added like $100 million to their bottom line in the early days, probably billions now. So that page load speed gets really important. That's a complicated thing for somebody to do on their own. I've seen people try to do it on their own. You can break certain sections of the website if you don't quite do it right. And then, kind of the next level is really doing a lot of promotion and getting the word out there. So I briefly mentioned using tools like Help a Reporter Out to try and find journalists who are looking to talk to a pressure washing company and being their source for, how often do I have to wash my roof, as a source for the, Times Magazine article that gives you a backlink back to your website that pushes you up. And then even stuff like that used to be simple, like we're just going to get a bunch of those, but now Google's prioritizing the links on the interior pages. So yeah, we're getting to a point where there's enough nuance in this that hire a professional. And all the stuff that I just said probably going to be outdated in 6 months, right? So this is when we can kind of get to this level, sort of do this on your own, kind of roll your own. And like you said, I'm hoping that your audience is valuing their time highly. $50 an hour for how you value your time. It really should be, for business owners, we want to get it to like $300, $500, $1,000 an hour. Like, what are the $1,000 an hour works that you can be doing? And that's when all this stuff with SEO is very, very time consuming. If you're valuing your time well, $1,000 an hour work is doing things like this, going on podcasts, building your personal brand, hiring really kick-ass salespeople, building processes, finding ways to get, a 1% reduction on your workers' comp insurance so you can save $10,000 a year, because you spent an hour working on that. That's the $1,000 an hour work. That's where we want to get people to go to so you can actually grow and get to that $2, $3, $4, $5 million company. So if we're getting there and kind of having that mindset, you definitely want to hire somebody. The trick is, and I've even been, guilty of this, hiring SEOs that just aren't doing the right work and are hurting you or just aren't helping. So my kind of keys there when you're looking to hire somebody, I always try to ask for recommendations. That always helps. Just any vendor you're looking for, getting a recommendation is a good starting point. But I've had a lot of people that, hey, I recommended this company, and maybe when you started with that company, it was good, but now they've scaled a little bit. They're not handling the scaling well, so they're not working out. So we always want to set our key performance indicators for our SEOs, for our accountants, for our whoever's. Get them a scorecard, hold them accountable. And SEO is the same thing. So with SEO, we're talking about these long horizons. I'm not going to see a return on investment here for 3 to 6 months. Or if I do in the organic SEO route, that even more expensive, $2,000 to $3,000 a month, it's going to take me a year before I'm really seeing something. But there should be steady increases along the line. And the graph kind of looks like this. It's like going, and then it just like takes off. Because best place to hide a body is on the second page of Google. So when you're on the second page of Google, it's just kind of right here, and then it shoots up. But there's still this steady increase. So what I want people to focus on, if you hire an SEO and you're paying that money to help hold them accountable, is to look at the results. We want to look at Google Analytics, make sure that not only the traffic is going up. Like, I had an SEO try to pull this on me because I was, just getting busy with my own business, valuing my time, right? $1,000 an hour. And I was like, okay, here's this guy, $2,500 a month, came highly recommended by somebody I know knows SEO, another business owner. And I'm gonna work with him. I'm gonna give it a shot. And they were trying to show me that they were doing good work for me. They had kind of promised a couple things. They weren't giving them to me. So I'm like, what are you guys even doing? And he's like, well, look, your Google Analytics is up. But I had ran a job ad. So all the people the traffic that was coming in was from like Indeed. And I just had to dive a little bit deep in Google Analytics, not full, nosedive. We're just putting our toe in, and it's like, oh, the organic search traffic is flat. You're not getting me any more or any less. It's just right there. It's flat. You're not hurting me, but you're not helping me. And you're trying to push off and say like, hey, you're getting more traffic. It's like, yeah, I ran a job ad and I had 300 people apply for the job. Like, okay, I've got more traffic. So make sure that you're looking at the right metrics. Google Analytics is good. Are we getting organic search traffic? Is it going up? Where this doesn't play well is seasonality. Like if it's our high season, I expect this to go up no matter what. If it's our low season, then this should go down just because the demand isn't quite there. So if you needed something to kind of compare that to, looking at Google Trends is another cool tool to kind of see like where it should be. But this is a good signal, kind of month over month, like year over year, is probably a really good metric to kind of see, okay, last year we got 10,000 visitors and this year we got 12,000, probably a good sign. The other thing is keywords. So you can track this for free in Google Search Console. Just log into there and you can look at how many keywords you're ranking for in total. You kind of want that number to be going up. It's not the best metric because it'll be like, oh, you're ranking for 3,000 keywords, but probably 1,000 of them are only going to be searched for once ever. Google released a statistic where like 10% of searches are only ever done once. People would spell check and stuff or whatever. So organic search traffic on Google Analytics, Google Search Console. If you have a keyword tracker or your SEO person has a keyword tracker, most of them will. I want to kind of see those numbers too. And those are really, really the biggest things. If we're doing that local search stuff with Google Business Profile. Google Business Profile has its own metrics for actions, like clicks for driving directions and calls and clicks to the website. Want to see those interactions going up too. I'm not looking for big jumps in the beginning. Really, the first like couple of months of an SEO engagement, we're kind of feeling each other out, fixing some little things, just getting stuff organized, and then we really start executing a little bit harder. So you just want to see some steady traffic, steady trickles up, and knowing enough about your industry to know, is this my seasonal trends, or is this SEO actually doing something for me? And just keeping track of those KPIs. Don't always trust reports that SEO people are sending you to. They could be, you can pretty much do whatever you want with statistics. So if they're not having consistent reports, or they're changing them on you frequently, could be a bad sign. But really holding them to account, keeping track of some KPIs, and just keeping an eye on it, and just looking at small improvements over time. So ask for referrals. Get in the Facebook groups, kind of see who's talking about who. Hire that person, and then trust but verify.
100%. That's great. So for a lot of people that watch this, they'll probably take those strategies you mentioned and be able to actually implement stuff themselves, which if you're doing something, that's better than doing nothing at all. But eventually, as you do want to scale as a business owner, the goal isn't to do everything, but to delegate it to people that are way better at you. So eventually you do want to probably outsource something like this to someone that can manage it better than you. Not only is it important, especially with SEO, it's important to know it's the right fit when you first work with them, but like you're saying, what's so important is throughout the relationship, be on top of it. Don't just set and forget and then not really look into things, and then 12 months down the line just be confused as to what happened. But throughout the entire relationship, monitor it, ask for the right stats, and make sure you're tracking the right metrics. And as long as you have a good relationship with the company, they're going to give you everything you need so you can assess whether it's worthwhile or not.
Yeah, and that's I've worked with some SEOs too in the past that are like, no, I don't want to share this with you, or I don't want to, tell you where we're building links. That's kind of a red flag for me. Just generally not disclosing the methods that they're using. A lot of SEO people really hold it tight to the chest. Like, hey, I don't want to give you my secrets because you're going to go start an SEO company. Nobody has time to start an SEO company. I'm sorry. Just tell me what you're doing. And, like I was sharing, I shared a good majority of the type of stuff that we do for Click Call Sell. Maybe about 50% of it. But if you're valuing your time at that $1,000 an hour, you don't have the systems built that we do to actually kind of push that stuff in and make stuff go. It's a lot of effort. Even for me, knowing SEO, knowing how to do it, following, reading all the SEO blog posts, and keeping my eye on it for the last 15 years or so, however long I've been doing it. It's a lot of effort, and you have to have the tools and the time and the systems to really execute on that. So the secret formula isn't always how do you do it. It's who does it, who's going to do it for me. Because if you get stuck just doing SEO the whole time, you can do this nonstop and still not see results. Or as soon as you figure it out, it'll change. So that's the other thing. So a couple other red flags just to look out for that I always like to kind of throw out for business owners is look out for SEOs that are too cheap. There's kind of an economics to SEO that I've noticed. Like if somebody says, hey, we're going to rank you for organic SEO. So remember I said the organic SEO is not in Google Maps. It's kind of above and beyond it. I've had companies say, oh yeah, I'm paying like $600 a month and they're going to rank me in organic. It's just not enough. The amount of time you have to put in to get the backlinks, to get the high quality backlinks, it's probably about an hour or two per backlink. If they're charging you $750, most of those SEO companies want to have it. We all know about kind of, the price per labor hour. Most SEO companies, digital marketing companies want to be at least $150, $200 per labor hour. So even though you're getting the flat rate of $700 a month, they can't spend more than 3 hours really on it. Or they're outsourcing this stuff to really cheap places, to cutting corners. They can't put the effort in. It's just not economically viable. That's why to really see results, you kind of have to be in that $2,000 to $3,000 range for organic SEO. Local SEO, like we talked about, you can use these citation aggregators that help push the data out and do things like that. So you can make that work for 4 to 700. But then, but just keeping an eye on like, hey, is this too good to be true? Because the really good SEOs are charging premiums. And the other one is fast results. Like SEO people are like, oh yeah, I'll get you ranked in a couple of months. Even if they can, they're probably doing things that Google's not going to like. They're really manipulating the algorithms in a negative way. And I've seen this backfire really, really hard. It's even been something that backfired on me. So back in 2014 was about when the Penguin algorithm rolled out. I was working for this agency, and people would come in within 2 days, we'd have them ranked because we were like, doing these blog comments and all these other stuff that like really, really worked back then. We'd have like 10,000 backlinks in like 2 hours for you, and then you'd be ranked. We could just rank a JPEG to rank for whatever word we wanted, and we're really, really good at it. But then the Penguin algorithm happened, and then we weren't able to manipulate in that way. And then it took us months to kind of relearn like what we had to do to actually be effective. And that's the other thing that can happen when it's too fast or too cheap. There's an element of this is too good to be true, and it'll usually, even if it works for a little bit, it'll backfire. It's a slow, steady optimization to really make SEO work. And then, like I said, not disclosing methods, changing KPIs on reports, not having consistent reports, or just not being able to share any references for people that they worked with. That's another big one. Like you should be able to say, hey, who are some other websites you're working with? Oh, here's these 3 people. Go give them a call. Those are all really good signs for me. And other things than that, I'd be a little careful.
100%. Well, this was amazing. I know we're kind of down to the wire now, so just want to wrap this up by saying, for anyone watching this, I think absolutely it's better to do something than do nothing. If you can't invest in your SEO, at least do the strategy he talked about that, costs no money, just really your time. But if you have the means of doing so, this is one of those things that is very delicate, and you should probably outsource and not screw up trying to do it yourself. So if you have the means, outsource it. Make sure it's with a credible company, a company that you can trust, as well as trying to understand as much of it as possible so you can actually evaluate whether it's working or not. But just to kind of put the bow on the present, I guess you could say, just to kind of wrap things up, you guys are absolutely crushing it in the companies you're a part of and offering these type of services. For anyone that, even if they're not looking to hire, just learn a bit more about it so they can do it on their own and for self-education. I know you're getting into YouTube and you're absolutely crushing it so far. Where could people learn a bit more about you?
Yeah, just follow me on YouTube, Ryan Knoll. It's just youtube.com/Ryan Knoll, or you just go to ryanknoll.com. That'll redirect you to the YouTube channel. Posting videos pretty regularly up there, so I'm gonna keep that content and all the chunky little bits coming. So.
Absolutely. And your content's great so far, so I definitely recommend you guys go check it out. But yeah, with that being said, Ryan, really appreciate you hopping on. This is great, and thank you for coming on.
Yeah, Michael, it's been fantastic. I will be here anytime you want. It's always great conversations, and I'm going to keep following your channel too. A lot of really, really great information coming out. Awesome. So keep it up.